Alright, we are recording Chapter 12 of Empire Strikes Back and that, and this when it's not being background removed. This'll actually be a short video, I hope, because I don't have much. Actually, I don't think I really have anything to rant about. I mean, just a little bit, but it's like continuing a rant from previous chapters, and very few notes. One is in the movie when Chewie is in the cell and he's grabbing, going rah, 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 and with the noise going, and then it finally stops, and the way he kind of brings down his arms. I always interpret that as in the movie he was like trying, because he was like just at the door or something, so it's like he was trying to escape, and there was an alarm that hey, he's trying to escape. No, in the book it does actually specifically say it was to torture him. They also had flashes of light and such because he, basically being a anthropomorphized animal, has very sensitive senses. So it's like that. There's clarity there because it's the fact that also how he's shaking that and then it stops. I was thinking, yeah, it was like an alarm. He either did shut it down by grabbing that bar, or somebody shut it down for him. The thing that would be a rant from, continuing the rant from previous things, is just the whole, why are they letting them keep 3PO's pieces? I mean, it still doesn't make any sense. It's a droid. You take that, you access its memories, you now know where the Rebel Alliance is, potentially at least some other information. But it's like, nah, they can have him. I mean, the whole Han, it actually is interesting. Han and Leia, the whole, them being tortured, not for questions, but just to torture, so it provokes Luke to come, which is kind of a gamble when you think about it. It's like, how do they know that Luke is going to sense that? Anyway, one thing actually neat is it does occur to Leia how Vader views her has changed. It does occur to her because she realizes, wait a minute, he's not doing anything to me. I think this is actually when Lando says that after somebody called Skywalker, and it occurs to her, before she was important for political reasons, but she's not anymore to Vader. So yes, she's just a means to getting Luke, and it's interesting to she fully is coming to understand that. And typically, I don't think that there's any pride there. It's not like her pride is wounded. It's just a helping to understand the larger situation, I think, is really what's going, because that's what Leia is. She's a very intelligent politician and tactician even. I don't know necessarily about specific battle strategy, but the grand scope of things, that's definitely where her skills are. She's got other skills, but she's definitely skilled there. So her figuring that out, I was like, okay, this is significant because that I understand my place in all of this, and also understanding where Luke is, because they don't necessarily understand why Luke is so valuable yet. Because it is the complaint I've had before. It's 3 years, and what's been going on with that? So they're not necessarily thinking of him as a Jedi at all, and that may be it'll be interesting if that is explained there, because the reader knows it. But do Han and Leia know that he has any interest in, any potential to become a Jedi, and then any interest in becoming? So, anyway, so after being so I already talked about it in the cell. Chewie's there, and he's putting together 3PO, and yes, the head being on backwards was also in this, and it's also kind of funny because Chewie's it has in there that, yeah, Chewie had forgotten how much a complainer he is, and it's disconnect, which is kind of funny. But when Han and Leia are brought in, they do embrace and kiss in that. So it is, I just find this interesting because, as I've said, and it makes perfect sense. I think that the way they're handling it in the book makes perfect sense because you have the benefit of, as I've said many times before, you can be in Leia's head and understand what's going on there. You don't have that ability in the movie, so basically the relationship has been one-sided throughout the movie. At least for how I remember it. I'll be watching when I finish this. Where it's just Han is constantly trying to court her in one way or another. Sometimes assertively, sometimes aggressively, but and she in the movie is constantly ignoring it, rebuffing it, whatever. So, not the case in the book. So that actually makes then later in the carbonite chamber, that whole scene I actually think is better done in the movie than in the book. Not just this part of it, but the whole "I love you, I know, that is much better in the movie because it's actually meaning there that Leia hasn't really been responsive to his efforts. But in this, they have been continuously for quite a while. So it's like you wouldn't have the "I love you" and then "I know." You wouldn't have had that because it's like, well, yeah, I kind of already. I mean, it's obvious we've been making out plenty of times. Whereas in the movie, I mean, it does actually. The line isn't even just "I love you." It's hang on. Sorry about that. When people actually come to your room, you kind of have to answer. Fortunately, the OBS pause button works. Okay, where was I? I think I was reading out the line from Leia. Should be right here. Okay. Her saying, because they also kissed right before she says, "I love you. I couldn't tell you before, but it's true." So, I couldn't personally, I don't even think you need to have the "I couldn't tell you before, but it's true." Because it is. She hadn't said it before. So I guess it's saying that to remind you that, hey, her saying it is significant. Yeah, and then his response is, "Just remember that because I'll be back." And it's like, yeah, that's not as good a line as "I know." But because of how one-sided it was in the movie, her saying it is far more significant. I mean, it's true. She didn't say it, but it's like, well, your actions were kind of clear. So in the movie, though, that her actions have not been clear on that, so her saying it is more significant, and you just straight, succinct, boom, so much better. And then the "I know," in a way, is actually even more powerful with the context of how it is in the book. That, because even if his response was "I love you too," no, the "I know" is better, has greater meaning with this comparison here, because he technically might not have known because she hadn't said anything. But by saying "I know," it is this, like, also acknowledging that he's known for a while, potentially, that is the case. So that while he might be doing some stuff that is a little silly, a little over the top, I said assertive and aggressive before, you could potentially interpret the "I know" as saying, I knew even then, and not necessarily as, I'm trying to think of how best to put it, like, saying that her reaction or not, he understood she was still understanding what he was doing there, what he was doing there, and that it wasn't wasted, and also potentially that he wasn't going as far over the top, or I guess maybe just that he was in fact trying to court her and not just trying to make out with her. That it was more significant to him, something like that. Because in this, it's like you already do know that he knows. I mean, it's very clear here. So in that, him saying that, and that it potentially it goes into the past as well, the meaning there, I do think that is handled much better. I will also just add this, because I do think about this with some of my own stories, that especially when you do have the two people that are the lovers talking, I do think that you don't need to spend, like when it is something like this, the "I love you, I know," or I love you too, any of that, being succinct, fewer words, I think is more powerful and is more appropriate, because it is the whole, why do they need to say more? I mean, they're not discussing something. They are not having an argument over something. They are sharing something with each other, which you don't need to go beyond that, potentially. Beyond just sharing, you don't need to explain it. And also, to a degree, it's a celebration. It's like when even married couples will still say, it's like, they're married. Do they really need to say "I love you"? Some people would say, well, technically, no. They're married. You know that already, but it's still, you say that because saying it is also a celebration of their love for each other. So but it is, you can do that short. If you take it out longer, then it's like, well, now it's losing some meaning. So yeah, I definitely do think that the movie does that better than the book. The movie also, Han's interaction with Chewie, because we do have, when they start leading Han over to be frozen, Chewie, starts reacting, try to protect him and all that. And in this, it's like a whole squad of stormtroopers are jumping on him and like hitting him with the butt of their guns when Han finally comes over. And he tells him to calm down and all that, and it's like, don't worry, I'll be back, whatever the line is like that. I don't really care. The movie's a lot better. with the whole, you need to take care of the princess now. That is such a better line there. Because, for one thing, it does not betray confidence on Han's part. Here, let me actually see what it is here, because it's right near. Chewie, no, stop at Chewbacca. Save your strength for another time, pal, when the odds are better. Mustard reassuring wink, but it doesn't really work. Yeah, I know, I feel the same way, keep well. And then you better chain him until it's over. I mean, it's... I just, again, he's talking too long, so the whole, you have to take care of the princess now, it's like, putting that responsibility on it, which, part of the reason why it's also better is, it's a bit more the masculine kind of role, that Han does view himself in a masculine way, and is a protector, that is part of the masculine role in many cases, in many stories, and now he's saying, it's like, that's been my responsibility, but I'm going away, not forever, at least that's his hope. Chewie, you now have to do that. That's not your responsibility. So stop what you're doing here. That's not serving her. That's not protecting her. Okay? Stop trying to protect me. You need to be protecting her. That's a much better line there. And again, it's the fewer lines. It's succinct. It's to the point. It is so much better there than this. And it does kind of make me wonder. I mean, one thing I will say is this is another one of those examples I would say for how the book clearly was not based on the shooting of the film. Because, I mean, if that was, I don't think that would be an ad-lib. I know is an ad-lib. I know that. But it's like, things are, this is different enough, and the movie is so much better here. I don't think that if the author for this had access to that, he would have written it this way. I think many people would have recognized, no, the movie is better, write it that way. So, just to, because some people do kind of wonder. Like, I was having the discussion with my family not that long ago about, it's like, they were thinking, oh, was this come out after? No, this released before. It's like, really? Oh, well, were they writing and doing? No, there were differences. That means that this had to have been written at the latest in pre-production, I think. It likely, my guess is they would have had a lot of this wrapped up by the time production really would have gotten going. Because then you would have had more similarities, I think, but, pre-production is very possible. But it might even have had the main draft of this finished well before, and then it was just going through editing passes, taking time for the publisher to do stuff, figure out typesetting, figuring out covers, all that. Yeah, so it's, unfortunately it is, I've only seen a publishing date. It would be interesting to see what the actual dates are for writing, when the draft started, when it finished, editing finished, all that. But if that information exists, it would either be with the author or in his notes, or it'd be with the publisher, and I can't imagine either of those parties ever sharing the information. That's actually it, really. The only other thing that happened, because it finishes with, oh wait, no, actually I didn't put it in my notes, but I do actually want to mention this. I almost forgot. So Luke does arrive, and he does knows, why is there like nobody asking me any questions for my being here? So Luke has gotten to the carbonite chamber. Vader is there. It's only the two of them alone, and Luke is built up in his mind that, yes, I'm ready for this. Obviously he isn't. We all know that. Let's just say youthful exuberance and the exuberance of inexperience. It is also kind of going back to the rant I had that made the last one so long. He doesn't know to be cautious here, and he should. They should have warned him enough, and not just been a, no, you shouldn't go, but a, this is what you're going to face. You need to understand. But the Force is with you, young Skywalker, because it even has, like, it doesn't have the comment here, which is actually kind of sad, that it does have the commentary, like, Luke feeling, yes, the Force is in me, I feel it, I can take him, I can do this. And then Vader is, the Force is with you, young Skywalker. So it's like Vader knows exactly what's in his head. And this is, again, going back to the whole, how Vader needs to be up here. That's the example that way. He knows what you're thinking. And this isn't necessarily like even just a Force thing for him that he knows, but just having the villain at that level where he understands you, or even just humans in general, but you in particular, I understand you well enough that that's what you're thinking, that the Force is with you. And yes, the Force is with you, young Skywalker, but you are not a Jedi yet. Vader's words had a chilling effect. Briefly, Luke hesitated, calling the words of another former Jedi Knight. This would be Kenobi, although it is interesting that he's referred to as Jedi Knight here instead of Jedi Master. Because I think he was referred to as a Master in the previous one. But anyway, yeah. Luke used the Force only for knowledge and for defense, not as a weapon. Don't give in to hate or anger. They lead the way to the dark side. But throwing aside any fragment of doubt, Luke gripped the smoothly finished handle of his lightsaber and quickly ignited the laser blade. Yeah, and then later, his great hatred for Vader impelled Luke to lunge at him savagely. That didn't last long. Then he was just thinking, oh yeah, don't give in to hate. Well, I hate you. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else to really mention here. Not really, except I do like the whole Vader's words had a chilling effect. Because that is exactly not only why Vader would say it, but he's also stating something that is true. He's not ready yet. Luke is not ready yet. But this will help puncture his pride. So it will humble him, and that really is necessary for Luke. But it is also, his great hatred for Vader impelled Luke to lunge at him savagely. The whole hatred there. That is something that is kind of interesting to consider philosophically with the Jedi. The idea that they must be able to attack with lethal intent, but at the same time, they cannot give in to their hatred. And it is how, yes, you can have lethal intent for something without hate. That's potentially a lesson that Luke hasn't learned yet, and going back to the rant in the previous video, is something that would be a reason why he has to face Vader. He's not going to really understand that fighting against Yoda, even if Yoda has his lightsaber. Because even if how do you necessarily have Luke separate out that Yoda would be attacking him with lethal intent? And Yoda would be doing that without any desire to harm him, but is not going to pull punches. And it is something that, another way to put it, and I do think it actually does a decent job, the manga and anime Bleach, in that the protagonist, Ichigo, when he's being trained, it's not so much the lethal intent, though that is mentioned in there, but resolve. And because that is one issue, one character weakness for Ichigo is he will sometimes lose resolve. And that is like a flaw throughout the series and is handled actually pretty well, in my opinion. I do like it, so I will fully acknowledge that. But how he needed to deal with, at one point when he's being trained, he doesn't really get the whole, you're actually trying to hurt me. It takes him a while for that to click. And then for him to respond like that. So in a certain way, Luke needs to go through the same thing. It's just that Luke doesn't really have anyone but Vader that can be a true sparring partner to him. Because we don't, as I said, we don't know if Yoda has a lightsaber such that he could do that. And it's also because of how small Yoda is and how inexperienced Luke is. I don't know if Luke could develop the resolve and develop the ability to summon up lethal intent without hatred. Him fighting Vader, being beaten, I think will help a lot with that, including breaking down his anger. But we do know in Return of the Jedi, Vader is able to gnaw at him and drag out the hatred again. At least that's my interpretation of events there. We'll see when we get to that part of the book. But yeah, so it is. I'm basically just trying to justify my rant in the previous part about the whole Luke had to go and do this. I don't like the setup, or rather lack of setup, for why this is what he has to do. But I do feel that it is the only way for the character of Luke to develop into what they need him to be. Because he needs the opponent, somebody that he will learn lethal intent from. Because Vader, in theory, should be attacking him with lethal intent. At least partially. Always with lethal intent, though he doesn't actually want to hurt him. But it's not like Vader is never going to, like, stab at him here. Always, like, somewhere that will actually hurt him. Vader will always do that. He doesn't want to kill him because he wants to take him, but he's not pulling punches, and it's, at least I'm pretty sure that is going to be the case. We will see as we continue reading. But yeah, so it will be interesting to read that, because it is partially that whole difference. Luke is still young, still naive, and he hasn't demonstrated lethal intent yet. Not in 1-to-1 stuff, at least. So, and for anyone like, oh, but he shot at people. Well, yeah, in fact, he did early in the chapter just shoot and kill 2 stormtroopers. Yeah, but that's different from, especially because that's more of a reaction versus just a duel. And there's also, well, I don't know. I was going to say there's also the faceless nature of the stormtroopers as well, but I mean, it is a weird thing that he didn't understand this with the Wampa. And I'm sorry, but that absolutely he should have tried to kill the Wampa immediately, and he failed to, and then like didn't even react to finish it off. So I mean, I don't think that he truly has lethal intent. He just, I guess that might be a good way to put it, that the stormtroopers, him firing and killing them, is also self-defense. So he's reacting with lethal intent. He's not acting with lethal intent. That is something that Vader, by his age and being previously a Jedi Knight, having fought in the Clone Wars and having fought others, he definitely has lethal intent. So those two, it will be very interesting to see how that is written out in here. Yeah. All right. I probably gone longer than I needed to, but yeah. So next chapter, I don't know how long it is, but we'll see. That's actually, wait, seriously? Like, I just was flipping forward, and now I'm to, like, Before Return the Jedi, which has a prologue. Did the others have a prologue? I don't remember. But a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. That's the first time it's in the book. That's kind of funny. Yeah, no, it's not in the others. It's not ahead of the others, even. And the funny thing is, that is in theory. Yeah, it's not with the others. That's in theory something, because this is a collection. This was made later. The text of the books would not have changed. But that front matter, in theory, they could have put earlier. I don't know. That's kind of weird. Anyway, see you next time.